Test.
All right. Hey, kiddos, may I have your attention, please? All right. Thank you for sitting down, but I'm going to have to get you back up in a moment. The first 6 rows are reserved for you guys to sit as you wait to come up on stage. And the way it's going to work is that Mr. Fish will hand you a card. We'll call your name, we'll hand you a card, and then he'll direct you to a seat where you'll sit. And we will have 15 kids out at each time coming up and lining up against this wall. And then we'll practice, but you'll come up, say your speech, walk off the stage, and sit back down in the same seat you were sitting initially. Does that make sense? You're not going to go back and sit with your friends. Okay? Mr. Fish is here. Okay. And remember, I think you've seen the slides, but you're all mixed up for the most part. Right. So first row, if you guys could please stand up and just line up against that wall, and we'll see if your name is in the pile of cards. Okay. Jefferson Adams. I need to read them. Jefferson Adams. Come on up. Mr. Fish is going to give you a card, and sit. That is your seat. Number 1. Next, I need Abigayle Rolfe. You're going to be number 2. Hey, this light. Number 3 is Tanner Van Slyke. Come on, Tanner. Come on up. Turner. Wooters 4. Oh, Alexis Wooters. I'm like, what am I doing up there? That's Micah 5. Is that Catie Allen? Bryn McDevitt. Tazie Betzler, 8. We'll give this to Tazie, she's 8. Aaron Esquivel. This is for Aaron. Joseph Cannon. Brandon. Brandon. This is for Brandon. Dani. How do you say the last name? This is Dani Angotti. Joseph Cannon. Brandon, take off your backpack. Bella Zanger. Braydon Stemple? I question my... And Abbie Carlsen. Okay, now I need you all in row. Here, Abbie.
YouTube Music. Download the app today and get a trial of Music Premium on us. Restrictions apply.
heck, let's do it again. So welcome to our guests, welcome students. You worked very hard. Your parents listened to that speech many, many, many times. I listened to your speech many times. Your slides are fantastic. You will do a great job. Thank you to Walla Walla Community College for giving us the opportunity to enjoy your campus and this facility. Thank you to Mrs. Clearman, Ms. Van Cleve, Mr. Fish, Mr. Hammond, and everybody who is pitching in to make this work. Give yourself a round of applause right now. Well done. Mrs. Clearman, are we good to go? Okay, I need the first row to line up. How do I turn this on? You guys, I know you'll want to clap after kids are finished. How about we wait until the whole row is done and then you'll clap, okay? Does that work? Okay, thank you.
All right, how many of you guys know the Bill of Rights? Could I just see a show of hands? Okay, let me just put this into perspective. Only 37% of our entire country knows this. To me, that's alarming. And I know what you might be thinking. Why should I care about this trivial detail? Well, democracy as a whole revolves around the idea of an informed society. To do this, we at least have to have a basic understanding of our government. The individual is always complaining this and that about our government, saying that they're being taxed too much. But in reality, all they know is that money's leaving their wallets. And the fact that this pays for the roads that they drive on, the education of their children, and maybe even their health care is disregarded. Society's created these norms that makes an individual think that these sorts of things aren't important to understand, but in reality they are. The US education system, for example, has created this barrier with what to know on one side and irrelevancies on the other. And they have it deeply wrong. Who cares if Pluto isn't a planet Who cares if Pluto isn't a planet if America's own children don't even understand what's happening back on Earth? But there's a simple solution to this. Just know your government. That's it. Within 6 years, every single one of you is going to be given the opportunity to vote. As America's youth, we're the future, so let's not mess that up. Thank you.
Studies have shown that including musical theater in schools has numerous benefits to not only students but to society. Many participants claim to be more confident and outgoing. According to the Kaufman Music Center, practicing music can improve memory, spatial learning, fine motor skills, and other basic academic functions. However, in some schools, theater is laughed at or not taken seriously. To encourage theater supporters, schools should provide the dramatic arts with plentiful funding and respect. Now, I'm not saying that sports are a pastime to be avoided. Sports are a healthy way to express choices and build trust between a team. Many also feel the same can be said about musical theater. There is a program called the Penguin Project that helps mentally disabled children by casting them in productions. Parents and children say that they enjoy the program and establish relationships with other people. In fact, more than 1,000 children participated in 2017. Among these reasons, I've experienced benefits from participating in musical theater as well. Though my acquaintances don't believe me, I've become more comfortable speaking to others my age, not being competitive with my peers, but treating them as friends. Theater is an inclusive and entertaining idea that opens up a world of friendships. Thank you.
You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. Greta Thunberg challenged her global audience in 2018 with these powerful words. In my opinion, it properly encapsulates the frustrating fact that we aren't doing enough. Threats of oil and gas development, pollution, water scarcity, and so much more plague our beautiful, sensitive world. Saving the earth is a daunting task, but there are small things that we can do. My specific challenge to the world today is to go vegetarian. To produce 1 kilo of beef, it requires a whopping 100,000 liters of water. In a reality where by 2025, half of the world will be living in water scarcity. Annually, the cattle industry produces an equivalent amount of CO2 to 220 billion pounds of coal being burned. Besides the environmental damage meat does, it also has been proven to be worse for your health. In a 2013 study, it was shown that a plant-based diet granted people a lower risk of numerous afflictions, including cancer. Vegetarianism is a healthy practice for all people and those who want to make a difference in this world. Thank you.
Okay. When the topic of drug use comes up, there is one question that comes to mind, and that is, what are we doing in schools to prevent the use of drugs? Drug use is a major problem right now. Every day, more than 130 Americans die from opioid overdose. Becoming hospitalized from popcorn lung or other lung-related issues to vaping is becoming more common. In the late 1990s, pharmaceutical companies reassured the medical community that patients would not become addicted to prescription opioid pain relievers. However, in 2017, more than 47,000 Americans died as a result to opioid overdose. The number of vaping-related injury cases in the United States just surged over 1,000. In 2015, the U.S. Surgeon General reported that e-cigarette use among high school students had increased by 900%. There needs to be a drug implant in our health program. Effective drug education is important because we are introduced to so many things through music, movies, media, and even school. Effective drug education looks like including content relevant to young people's experiences and interests. Responding to the drug abuse situation early helps to create a brighter and healthier future. Thank you.
When I was 2, my brother was born with Down syndrome. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but now he's 11 and still bringing joy to our lives. Down syndrome is caused by a genetic duplication of the 21st chromosome. It causes several physical effects, such as distinct facial profiles, small hands and ears, and several mental effects, such as slower learning and affected memory. Down syndrome is a larger part of society than most people realize. 1 in 700 babies are born with Down syndrome, and it affects 250,000 families in the U.S. alone. A big problem in society is that we are not accepting and including them in our lives. People with Down syndrome are still humans with caring hearts and functioning brains. A survey done by Brian Skotko, a Harvard physicist, showed that 88% of family members of people with Down syndrome said that they were better people because of it. We should include and accept them, not try to get rid of them. In the past, people with Down syndrome were sent to mental health institutions with poor conditions, and they often died early deaths. Now, the 10% of Down syndrome children that are allowed to be born live normal lives with their families, but they're still not totally accepted. I urge you to help children and adults with Down syndrome by donating to organizations that support them and by including them in your lives. Thank you.
This is how a person with dyslexia would see the phrase, "have a nice day." Dyslexia is a learning difference that makes it hard for some people to read because their brains are wired differently. But having dyslexia does not mean you are stupid or dumb or simple-minded. It's something you're born with, and it's genetic. Between 15 to 20% of the population has some form of dyslexia, but that's not bad. People with dyslexia are often really good at math and engineering and science. They're also often more creative. This is my brother Luke. Luke has dyslexia, but his dyslexia isn't who he is. He's smart. He made that. This is a desk he made by hanging a basketball hoop on his door. It's one of the most creative things I have ever seen. But my brother thinks that he's stupid because he has trouble recalling the sounds that letters make. We need teachers in many school districts with skills to teach children to read at the pace they need in order to learn, and let students with dyslexia know that they're not dumb or different. Thank you.
Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world, said Nelson Mandela. All over the world, there are millions of children who have no opportunity for education, mainly because of poverty. Insufficient education affects countless people, and even though there are barriers preventing education from thriving, there still are things that can be done to increase awareness for the severity of the problem and solutions that can help. Lack of schooling has the biggest effect on children. It can result in health issues, inability to provide for themselves, and can prevent them from reaching their full potential. Children right now are the future. They are the ones who will shape what our world is like in the time to come. Do you really want the world to be run by people who never got a full education or never even got a chance at one? While people are working to improve the amount of education globally, there still hasn't been a significant change. Statistics show that in 2018, there were around 263 million children globally out of school. That number has barely changed over the past 5 years, which goes to show how much needs to be changed for this problem to be solved. But things like providing better learning materials, finding qualified teachers, and reducing the overall cost of schooling are all things that can add up to make a difference in the number of children who are getting an education worldwide. Thank you.
There are many teens that vape, but there are also many health risks from vaping. Vaping puts nicotine into the body. However, other vaping health risks are better understood. Nicotine is the primary substance in both traditional and electronic cigarettes, and it has been shown to increase the risk of cancer, heart disease, stroke, lung diseases, diabetes, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Vaping can also increase the risk of other types of addiction later in life. Long-term exposure to these substances in e-cigarette vapor could potentially lead to injury and disease, including cancer, and can affect reproductive health. There are many vaping tools that have flavors to them, but some researchers found that 92% of the flavors tested for one of 3 potentially harmful chemicals, diacetyl acetylpropionyl or acetoin, are almond, bread, burnt berry, camphor, cardamom, chocolate, cinnamon, clove, coffee, cotton candy, creamy, fruity, herbal, jam, nutty, pineapple, powdery, red hot, spicy, sweet, thyme, tomato, tropical, vanilla, and woody. Many states have banned the purchase of flavored vape juice. These states are Michigan, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Washington, Montana, and Oregon. Banning the purchase of flavored juice for electronic cigarettes can hopefully reduce the number of teens that vape.
My name is Aaron Escobar, and we should be using alternative energy sources right now. Alternative energy sources are focused as being an alternative way to fossil fuel. Carbon dioxide emissions are an important factor in global warming, and if we use these alternative ways to get energy we need, the Earth would just be healthier for us, and we wouldn't have to worry about rising sea levels, which is a major problem that has only been getting worse. We use energy in our everyday lives, and now since so many people are starting to populate the world, we're going to have to find more smart ways to conduct energy for us to use. Climate change will cause global warming, which will then lead to glaciers melting, causing high rising sea levels. So this alternative energy solution is the main thing that could possibly prevent these tragic things to happen. Rising sea levels will soon be tied to the point where all the coastal cities are just going to get washed off by the city, or washed off by the ocean. Renewable energy minimizes carbon pollution, has much lower impact on our environment. The planet is pretty much ready to go 100% renewable by 2050. Thank you.
On t-shirts, you might have seen this face, and a lot of people wear this shirt and don't actually even know what his name is. Her name is Ernesto Rafael Guevara de la Serna, or as you probably heard, Che Guevara. People wear the shirt without actually putting much thought into who he is because he's become appropriated as a symbol of revolution by Western culture. During his time as a revolutionary in Cuba, History.com states he gave the order to execute between 156 and 550 during a leadership position, and that was alone. The Butcher of La Habana website clearly states that these victims include reporters, police officers, soldiers, and other political dissidents. The website details his crime as head of the prison, an account taken from a prisoner speaking of how Che Guevara personally executed a 14-year-old for attempting to stop a firing squad from executing his father. That is roughly the same age as a large portion of this audience. A prisoner is quoted as personally witnessing the executions of 55 individuals. He goes on during his testimony of his experience at La Habana to speak against Che, citing that he enjoyed ordering the firing squad to shoot. I pleaded as many times with Che on behalf of the prisoners. I remember especially the case of Ariel Lima, a young boy. Che did not budge. If you would not wear a Hitler shirt, if you would not wear a Stalin shirt, you would not wear a Che Guevara shirt.
Okay, to achieve a strong grasp of the world and what happens within the atmosphere, one must learn geography. In the US, geography is not a prioritization and has therefore led to basic understanding of the topic, which is depressing. When 4th and 8th graders took a test given by the NIEP in 2014, the average score was 261 points, 21 points below the level of proficiency, or passing. When looking at the scores from 1994, there's almost no difference, as the students who took the test in 2014 had a 1-point difference from their peers from 1994, 260 points to the most recently released 261. The main culprit for these scores was addressed in the report made by the U.S. Government Accountability Office. The report showed that more than 50% of social studies teachers spend 10% or less of their time to teaching geography, choosing to focus more on other topics such as economics, history, and civics. With all of that in mind, I have a strong belief that geography should have higher prioritization in the U.S. education system, so people will be able to understand events and conflicts that happen in our world while developing a deeper grasp of history as well. Thank you.
classic, "Give me your lunch money," or "No, you can't sit with us," we see in the movies. Although quite honestly, it really couldn't be more different. Social bullying is often overlooked in the main topic of bullying. Physical bullying is what we mainly connect with the word, but it isn't actually all that common. Social bullying, however, happens everywhere. The kid who's left out, rumors, the people who are embarrassing each other, and even telling people they can't be friends with each other anymore. Social bullying leaves victims with low self-esteem, feeling unwanted and betrayed. The effects of bullying can leave someone in an awful spot, and victims often have mental health problems, in school, and feel uncomfortable in social situations. On the contrary, kids who have bullied someone may also be in a tough spot. So what can we do to help? Intervening is very important, and that can often stop the bullying within seconds. Supporting victims and kindly encouraging bullies to stop can also help too. I encourage you to try and help someone, whether it is big or small, it will make a difference.
Did you know that, Did you know that 496 species of animals are listed as threatened and endangered? Scientists believe that at least one animal becomes extinct per day. This is a big problem. All these animals are important to an ecosystem. When they die, there's no getting them back. Many of the reasons why animals are endangered are because of humans. Deforestation, habitat destruction, pollution, littering, and animal trapping are all caused by humans. Animals like the Cross River gorilla, hawksbill turtle, Malayan tiger, and many others are all being affected by careless people who don't think about their actions. Only since 1900 have people started to worry about the decreasing populations. The Lacey Act, the Endangered Species Act of 1966, 69, and 73 were all put into place to protect these species. These protections are even now continuing in the place of organizations like the WWF, National Wildlife Federation, and several others, but they need help. I urge you to donate to these places or even volunteer. The least you can do is think twice before anything you might do. The smallest actions make the biggest difference. Thank you.
In 2010, the death penalty was abolished in Washington, and I feel bringing it back would have a positive impact on our prison population. Our prison's population is climbing at alarming rates, and if we don't start doing something about it, then we'll soon have overpopulated prisons and will become hard to maintain. Now, I know that having a few serial killers serve capital punishment won't make much of a difference, but this also isn't the only thing you'd be punished for. And when I say this, I'm not saying that all criminals in our prisons deserve to die, but those who commit specific crimes do. Some of these include committing a murder for the second time, torturing a person, etc. You get the point. Also, if we reintroduce the death penalty, we would have more money for our schools. How? Our state's prisons spend almost $38,000 per inmate, and we here at our schools only spend just over $9,000 per student, which is significantly different. Also, reintroducing the death penalty would take out some of the people who have made our prisons such a nasty place and make it easier for criminals whose crimes weren't as heinous a chance to rehabilitate and get back out in the real world.
Over 150 million people worldwide suffer from both anxiety and depression. Many of those diagnosed are teenagers, and many friends of those teenagers aren't even aware that their friend is going through something difficult. We all should do more to spot the signs of depression and anxiety, as well as to help those in need. Usually, a victim of depression becomes depressed in response to some sort of trial, be it bad living conditions, schoolwork, or something else entirely. It can make someone feel hopeless, or they might not be able to concentrate on crucial things. It can even make someone feel like they have nothing left to live for. If we pay attention and do what we can to help, preventing suicide would be much easier. Anxiety is just as bad. It can range from mild stress to full-on panic attacks, which can make someone feel like they can't breathe. It's much more severe than many think, and we should be more aware and search for these signs. If it is possible that a friend or loved one might be considering suicide, ask them to find out for sure. Try not to make them feel too uncomfortable. Ask them gently, be kind to them, and if their answer is yes, tell a trusted adult immediately. If not, the best thing to do is treat them normally and listen to them if they want to talk.
In today's society, the rule has been set by many people that you can make fun of somebody if they talk differently or their skin is different or you just don't like them in general. But I want to change that in today's society, so I'm trying to treat everyone the best way that I can. So no matter how they talk or if their skin is a different color, I'm going to treat them the same. And so the way you could help this cause is by telling someone if you hear racism or stereotyping, tell someone that you trust. Now, I'm not trying to create a perfect society here, but one where everyone treats everyone equally, so perfect society, I guess. So let me just put this image in your brain. There's a black man walking down the street with torn clothes, saggy pants, and a gold chain. What are you going to think about that person? Thank you.
Water and air, the two essential fluids on which all life depends, have become global garbage cans. Jacques Cousteau. Water pollution is the pollution of bodies of water, such as lakes, rivers, and oceans. It is affecting all water animals, like those cute little seals you saw at the beach, or the dolphin who splashed you at the aquarium. Oh wait. Many celebrities, including actor Matt Damon and country singer Carrie Underwood, are doing their best for this cause. Waste from factories is contaminating our water illegally by dumping their unwanted substances. This is endangering both human and animal lives, and it needs to stop. About 19.4 billion pounds of garbage are dumped into our oceans annually. Not only is contaminated water hurting the fish, but it is also killing humans. Almost 2 million people die every year due to polluted water. By donating money to charities or even reducing your plastic waste, you will be helping our environment. It's time to start watching what we waste. Be a part of the solution, not the problem.
We live in a binary reality, a reality where gender is a determining factor in employment, position, social standings, and general day-to-day life. But what does gender mean to you, and why is it so important? Society is full of unknown expectations of gender that it almost unconsciously forces upon our youth. The way we learn these norms and expectations is through a process called gender socialization. When infants are born, they are constantly being influenced by the toys we buy them, the colors surrounding them, etc. But as children grow up, these influencing factors live on a much larger scale, becoming harder to control, such as the media, peers, and major role models. Recent studies show that by 2 to 3 years old, children already have a grasp of the stereotypes surrounding their gender and begin to exhibit preferences in toys, activities, and clothing. And by age 4, many children already have an established gender identity that they will base their childhood on. Gender socialization itself is not exactly an unwelcome force. It's the fact that we don't allow children to pursue interests, passions, or pursuits that lie outside of these gender norms that is an issue. What I propose to you is a switch in the way we view gender. We should be questioning these generalizations of gender and encouraging behaviors that shatter these stereotypes in young children. To echo the words of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, if we don't place the straitjacket of gender roles on young children, we give them space to reach their full potential. Thank you.
The first law made in the U.S. that involved guns was the Second Amendment. The first law involving gun control was the NFA, or National Firearms Act. The act banned guns with shortened barrels and automatic firearms. Most dictators throughout history instituted a form of all-out gun control in order to keep the citizens in check. Hitler used mass gun control before his acts of genocide, and Chairman Mao said political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Hugo Chavez, the leader of Venezuela, enacted a ban in 2012 in an attempt to stop gun-related crimes. However, the death by gun rate jumped to 49.22 people in every 100,000 people. There were similar results in other countries too. England, Ireland, Jamaica, and Australia all had problems after gun bans were enacted. Many criminals acquire their firearms through theft or black market, so instead of making it easier for a criminal to commit a shooting and walk away unscathed, arrested or not, we need to give them something to fear. The general idea of gun control is something every country needs, but the ways of instituting is what worries me. Instead of removing law-abiding citizens' ability to protect themselves, we need to remove criminals' ability to acquire firearms. Background checks are one of the many ways to stop illegal acquirement of firearms or the selling of firearms to mentally unstable citizens. I urge you now not to vote against firearms and to fight for your Second Amendment rights. Thank you.
Sports come in a package with childhood, and it is more than likely that a kid will play one in their lifetime. So concussions can also be part of that experience. Concussions are serious and dangerous for young athletes, and they need to be studied more. A brain disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, can be caused by repeated hits to the head. If it isn't treated well, it can also result in dementia. An article called Brain Disease Found in Most Football Players, CTE was found in about 95% of brains studied. The director of the Boston University CTE Center also said that more than 95% of football players, or 90 of 94 players whom we examined, had CTE. Not good news for pro players because they earn their money through the football. Concussions will keep changing lives as long as we keep on playing sports. A teen in Connecticut was playing in a football game when he sustained a heavy blow, and he wasn't even aware what a concussion was, so he went back into the game later. If people keep doing this, who knows where sports will end up in the future. He had 3 concussions in his career, and the most recent one ended it. If he had the proper help and hadn't gone back into the game, he would probably be fine today. Concussions are preventable, but athletes must listen to coaches when being instructed on how to play the game, and the coaches must know what they're doing as well. Initiatives like the Heads Up program provides info on them to parents, coaches, and athletes to help protect the player's brain. Players should also just play smart, don't purposely make dangerous plays, and do their best to not get hit on the head. Getting hit a few times can give a player a concussion, but as long as they play safe, that will be fine. Thank you.
During a college athlete's career, they spend their years at a university playing a sport that they spent countless hours putting in the work for. They all want to achieve one goal and one goal only, to go pro. If you go pro in any sport, you're going to get paid millions and millions of dollars. But what about the student athletes that don't have what it takes to go 1 year in college and straight to the pros? And then instead they have to stay all 4 years for a degree and, they have to stay all 4 years. Or even the student athletes that stay 1 year and are a superstar and don't even make any money off of their profit during that year. Look at Zion Williamson. Zion put on a show for not only the Duke basketball team, but also the NCAA. The NCAA made millions of dollars from his crazy in-game dunks and highlights. But Zion did not get any of the profit from his school or the NCAA. Think about the student athletes who had stayed for 4 years and didn't go pro after their time at college. They spent so much time that they didn't get a good degree in their 4 years at that university. Now they either have to go to grad school or not even go back to school for the amount of money that the school costs. Student athletes should be paid for not only their benefits now, but their benefits for their lives in the future. Thank you.
Tommy Lasorda says that the difference between the impossible and the possible lies in a person's determination. Determination is an extremely important factor when it comes to doing something big, something like fixing the ozone layer. If we, as humans, could completely repair the hole in the ozone layer, then many things like skin cancer would be reduced by a great amount. In the 1970s, a hole started to form in the ozone layer, and it got bigger and bigger over the years. According to the UN Environment Program, if the ozone layer were to be completely destroyed, almost all life on the Earth's surface would die out due to heat rays produced from the sun. Fortunately, ozone protects us from those rays. Thankfully, the size of the hole has greatly reduced over the years. In fact, it is the smallest it has ever been since its discovery, according to NASA and NOAA. If we continue working, we can make the hole even smaller. I'm not asking for much. You can do something small, like walk small distances instead of using a car. And try not to use sprays containing CFCs. Thank you.
Seven U.S. states do not allow student IDs for voting registration. A new New Hampshire law, HB 1264, requires that any student who owns a car must re-register their vehicle in-state before they can register to vote. Politicians have been trying to stop college students from voting who have as much a right to vote as any other adult. Sometimes voting officials told college students that they had no proof of residency, but then would not accept the proof that the students showed some. Other politicians are trying to tear down these roadblocks by passing bills that solve student voting problems. One of the best bills brought up by federal politicians so far is H.R. 1. This bill would require colleges to appoint someone to remind college students when the voting period starts and ends, which helps because students who have never voted before and or have a tight college schedule can forget easily. A 2010 study found that sending an email with a PDF to all students does not increase voting. But in a separate study, it was discovered that a presentation to the students by student or teacher increased the number of votes by 6%.
History is full of significant libraries. Over the millennia, libraries have burned down countless times. It's important to society to have libraries. People over time have felt and recognized the crucial need to preserve them. When libraries are burned down, they are restored because libraries are the gateway to knowledge. Local public libraries are vastly important, but so are school libraries. Studies have demonstrated that students in schools with effective school library programs learn more, get better grades, and score higher on standardized tests. The National Center for Education Statistics states that approximately 8,830 public schools across the nation do not have a school library. Some might assume that these benefits are associated mainly with wealthier schools. However, that is not the case. Studies are carefully monitored so that all tests are the same. A lot of research has been put into how helpful libraries are, so why aren't we using them? Many schools won't have libraries next year. Facing cuts in funding, schools are choosing to make cuts in school libraries. Contact your local school district. Make the best use of your school library programs. Librarians do more than check in and out books. They teach children the love of books. Save the libraries.
Holding a grudge may seem fairly harmless, right? Wrong. Recent studies have shown that grudges actually result in negative physical and mental effects. It is exceedingly more beneficial to let go of grudges than to hold on to one. The physical effects of grudges are immensely unhealthy. One effect is that grudges increase sensitivity to physical pain. Studies show that grudges also make it harder for people to execute movement, such as jumping. The physical strain alone that grudges induce is enough reason not to hold them at all. Unfortunately, the mental effects of holding a grudge are just as awful as the physical ones. It is proven that grudges can worsen and create anxiety, heightened stress, and depression. These side effects of holding a grudge can make things tough to cope with and hard to handle. All things considered, grudges are a dreadful thing to hold. It is more beneficial to forgive and move on than to hang on to a grudge. In fact, it is proven that letting go of grudges, in other words, forgiveness, causes improved health and peace of mind. So when given the choice between holding a grudge or forgiving, choose to forgive and move on. Thank you.
Having a clean-cut lawn and perfect green grass is what most people dream of. But once you know the facts about what lawnmowers, fertilizers, and other chemicals are doing to the environment beyond your yard, you begin to realize that you're doing it all wrong. Would you rather have a green lawn or a green planet? Even fertilizers that are commonly used on grass do harm. Anything that is over-applied seeps into waterways, causing excess amounts of weeds to grow in and around streams. Other chemicals emit toxins into the air and water, which is bad for human health. Several types of cancer are caused by exposure to these substances. Gasoline-powered lawn machines pollute the area with carbon dioxide, a substance emitted that is burning holes in our atmosphere. Along with the stress-inducing noise pollution these machines also emit. Everything is affected by our everyday choices. Although a perfect lawn may seem dignified, what it really shows is how uneducated or defiant a person is about the environment.
In Somalia, a starving mother and children took a 2-week walk to Badoa, searching in vain for something to eat. One by one, Surrey watched her 7 children die, the last to go, her infant still breastfeeding. Compassionate villagers helped her dig her child's grave. "I was not in my senses anymore," she said. "I was lost in my grief." This is not uncommon. Every 10 seconds, a child under 5 is lost to hunger, the monster ever thirsting for their lives and future. How can we stand by and let this happen? It should be our mission to end this terror as members of the human race. And it costs only $5 to feed a baby for a week through Samaritan's Purse. It only takes 15% less food waste in the US to feed 25 million more people. A world of full stomachs may sound like a fantasy, but so is a computer 100 years ago. Hunger can be stopped. And it will if we do our part. The monster that has killed so many will kill no more. Thank you.
Kids walk into their school's lunchroom 5 times a week, and every time they hear people say, "You're so gay," or "You're a lesbian." And every day, all of us hear it. Our LGBT+ community is a community consisting of those of us who are different. Even though we are different, we are bullied for being human. Bullying puts youth at increased risk for depression, suicide, misuse of drugs and alcohol, risky sexual behavior, and can affect academics as well, says the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Most children don't tell anyone. They keep it a secret for as long as they can in order to protect themselves. We, as friends and families, can't stop this abusive practice. If you hear anyone say something abusive, tell them it's not okay, it's hurtful, that people who have depression hurt themselves because of it. Because I know what it's like to sit back and watch as they fling words at you. Curses, put-downs, telling us that we're just not good enough. Heed my words, take them into your heart. It only takes a word and you can save someone. Saving that one person takes a step towards saving our world.
Technology is something that we use every day. I mean, it's super helpful. It does so many things for us, and in the future, it'll probably do even more things for us. AI, or artificial intelligence, as it is known, is a branch of technology that allows a computer to think intelligently. Even today in our everyday lives, we use AI. It assists us in writing emails, getting driving or music recommendations. Computers and phones function using an AI algorithm. Concerns about AI raise a question. How will it impact the economy? Job loss would be at a record high because machines could do the job better and more mechanically accurate than humans can, with a lower chance of error. Robotic machines are already abundant at car factories, doing things with high precision and speed. To better understand artificial intelligence, you have to realize that there are two types of it. Strong AI hasn't been developed yet, but the AI that we have right now is known as narrow AI, and that includes voice assistants like Siri or Alexa. Self-driving cars that might be invented in the future are an example of how artificial intelligence is going to be integrated into our lives. Whatever happens, I urge you to think of artificial intelligence as a tool and not something to be feared. Thank you.
Homework. All students have it, but do they need it? Although it may seem like a big price to pay at first glance, getting rid of homework is the best way to solve the problems it causes. Stress is a big one, and it's only made worse with the amount of homework. In a study done in 2014, less than 1% of students reported homework to not be a source of stress. In my personal experience, almost all of my daily stress comes from homework. The value of homework is argued about in many places. The education system in Finland has schools give out very little homework, and in America, the education system has schools give out more than twice as much. When these two different countries gave their students the same test, students in Finland got better results than students in America. This just goes to show how something that doesn't always work won't work just by adding more. So, what needs to be done is very simple. Students, make sure your teachers know how much time you spend on homework and out-of-school activities each day. Teachers, do the best you can to not give students homework, but if you can't do that, then at least help the individuals who need it. Thank you.
Mental health. I'm sure you have heard this term or are familiar with it. Mental health has become a major issue in today's society and comes in many varieties. It can range from depression to anger and many other illnesses. Recently, depression has become a worldwide epidemic that has been identified often in adolescents. It is a form of mental illness that most suffer from and often takes lives. Depression is defined as a mental illness that makes one feel severe despondency and dejection. This illness has become very serious since it can cause one to self-harm or commit suicide. Since 2007, studies have shown that the rates of suicide have risen 84% in ages 10 to 24. This means over the past decade, people have struggled with mental health to the point of self-harming and killing themselves. Starting at the age of 10, to help stop this epidemic, schools should begin to consider digging deeper into this topic to help others and possibly save lives. If more programs in school and out of school helped out with mental health, suicide and self-harm rates could drop, resulting in a better and healthier life for adolescents growing up in this world. Altogether, we as a society need to join together and prevent this epidemic from spreading further. Thank you.
According to Lindsay McEntee, Chief Ovulation Officer at Ant Flow, 86% of women have started their period in public without access to the menstrual products that they need to function throughout the day. About 8% of public restrooms in America have tampon and pad dispensers. This abysmal number is a result of no laws or regulations that require places to have these machines. Even if places have dispensers, they are often not well built or not stocked. A study at the University of Nevada, Reno showed that out of their 30-plus machines, only 3 worked. Why have machines at all if they don't work, aren't stocked, and might take your money in a desperate time? Women must be allowed the availability of feminine products wherever they are, and if more bathrooms had these products for free, it would save girls from many hours of misery and panic in their lifetime. Thank you.
If I were to ask you what you think gender bias in education is, you might think of girls only wearing pink and boys blue. Or maybe you think of girls being told that they can't do something because they're girls. However, it goes much deeper than that. In fact, boys get 70% of all D's and F's that teachers give out, make up 2/3 of students labeled learning impaired, and atone for 80% of high school dropouts. But it doesn't stop there. The socialization makes sure that we are made aware of the inequality in our school systems. We are taught outrageous ideals from a very young age. Girls are taught to like feminine things such as pink and frilly things, and boys are taught to be masculine and to not like anything girly. The school system is supporting the socialization of not only the sociological idea of only 2 gender identities and the harsh ideals that come with them, but rape culture as well. When an act of sexual harassment is ignored, the degradation of young girls is being supported. When different behaviors are tolerated for boys than for girls, because boys will be boys, schools are perpetrating the oppression of females. The Department of Education should be providing mandatory gender equity resource modules to in-service teachers, and gender bias needs to be addressed with all pre-service teachers. School faculty need to be aware of the gender bias they are reinforcing in students through socialization messages. Thank you.
Imagine a book you care about. What would you do if you went to a school or a library reading that book and was told it wasn't allowed there? This is called banning books, and it's a way of removing books from the community. Banning books usually starts with a complaint. The complaint, if can't be decided, is usually taken to a state library association and judged. It is either judged that the book is reasonable and can be kept, or that the book is inappropriate and should be removed. Banning books is unfair to the people who want to read books but aren't allowed to. Books are supposed to be read by people, not kept away where no one can read them. If you dislike a book, you can refuse to read it, but banning books takes the book away from others. America isn't the only place to ban books. Books aren't only banned all across the world, but also burned, thrown into water, shredded, and many other unfortunate things. These things are protested against too. In Germany, there is a memorial from a book burning. It consists of a window with empty shelves shown through it. Stop banning books. It takes them away from people who want to read them but aren't allowed to. Instead, just don't read it yourselves instead of taking away from others who disagree. Give people the freedom to read what they want.
Half of today's high school athletes only play one sport. Athletes who specialize think they will be able to get college scholarships and have the opportunity to play professionally. However, a UCLA sports specialization study surveying 296 Division I athletes found that 88% of them played 2 to 3 sports as children. 70% did not start specializing until after the age of 12. LeBron James is, of course, one of the most notable NBA players right now, but not everyone knows that he was an all-state wide receiver for 2 years in high school and had the opportunities to go to the collegiate level. Sports specialization can lead to increased stress injuries and burnouts of sports. Playing multiple sports helps young people develop relationships to make more friends, and they have more game-like competition. We need to encourage our next generation about the benefits of playing sports so they don't miss out into the pitfalls of specializing in sports and miss out on the opportunities they have to come.
Homelessness is a large concern for many citizens and visitors to the city of Portland, Oregon. Homelessness is the single most exhausting thing people say they have ever experienced.
You're worried about where you're going to sleep that's safe. Imagine having to find a place where you can go to the bathroom without getting a ticket or without exposing yourself to another person that might try to sexually assault you. You have to scrutinize every single decision you make as to whether that's going to put you in danger. And on top of that, you're struggling to meet your basic needs. Then you're not eating, which adds to your mental exhaustion. So when people are like, they can work, yes, they are capable of working, but they need the stability to do so. If you're concerned about people sleeping on benches where people might want to sit, how about adding more benches or investing in the epidemic? There are many solutions to solving homelessness, and there isn't anything being done. Thank you.
Albert Einstein once said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid." Unfortunately, the way that schools are run greatly conflicts with the teen brain. Though homework is important for processing what you have learned, many studies have found that too much homework may lead to sleep deprivation and extreme levels of stress. Schools don't seem to understand that many children have responsibilities outside of school, leaving less than an hour for extracurricular activities and family time, which benefit mental and physical health. I often feel that the last thing I want to do after going to school for 6 hours is to come home just to solve more equations. The expectation for teenagers, especially teens with mental disorders, to sit still and focus on one subject at a time for an hour goes directly against studies of the teenage brain. However, if schools work to understand the effects of mental health disorders, many of their students could be more successful. Kids are supposed to be kids, not machines that know the Pythagorean theorem but nothing about how to take care of themselves. Thank you.
Humans are destroying the earth. Even though I know that you all definitely want to hear more about that, that's not quite what I'm talking about today. I'm going to be talking about Mars. Now, Mars is probably our #1 option for saving humanity, and I'm going to tell you why. Here, though, are a couple of facts first for more info. One fact that may surprise you is that SpaceX, a private space corporation that many of you probably know of, actually has a goal to go to Mars by 2022. This seems pretty crazy when you think about it, because even NASA isn't thinking of going to Mars until the 2030s. This slide says a little bit about that. Another more worrying fact is the fact that humans, through global warming, could possibly ruin the world by 2050. No, I'm not kidding. This is a quote by Ray Bradbury, well-known horror and science fiction author, which I think really kind of sums up this speech. The quote basically states that once we get to Mars, we could live forever. There are many reasons to go to Mars. One is the fact that a trip to Mars could inspire young kids to pursue engineering and space careers, which we will definitely need in the future. I also believe that if we can get to Mars, it will encourage adults just as much as kids to pursue even more technological advancements, improving our ability to fix things we have ruined. Thank you.
How many people here are left-handed? Like, show of hands. Okay, well, you probably know a couple left-handed people and at some point in time wondered, why are they so rare? Well, you see, 2,500 left-handed people are killed a year from using tools made for right-handed people. Also, back in the days of old, left-handed people were forced to use the right hand because they were seen as evil, and that is completely stupid. And despite the invention of left-handed scissors, there are plenty of problems and stuff for left-handed people. Writing with a pencil, graphite all over your hand. Cutting with right-handed scissors just hurts and gets cramps in your hands. And sitting to the right of a right-handed person, you'll be bumping elbows all the time and apologizing like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that." In the end, being left-handed isn't that rare. You probably know a few left-handed people, including me. I'm left-handed. And there are plenty of noteworthy lefties in history. Just Google them. Thank you guys so much for listening. And remember, August 13th is Left-Handers Day. Do not forget that.
College basketball rivals Duke and North Carolina faced down in one of the most watched games in 5 years. Zion Williamson, an unpaid Duke superstar, pivoted with the ball, and his force split his Nike shoe in half. His knee was sprained, and the fans wondered if his career was over. College players sacrifice their bodies and commit time to their sports, just like professional athletes. The organizations they play for, TV broadcasting companies, and even their own coaches are being paid millions of dollars. Everyone is getting rich except for the players. The NCAA has been debating this issue for many years but never acted on it. Recently, they decided to embrace change and allow all college athletes to use their name and image to collect endorsements and contracts. This process will take years to finalize, and the problem is that the athletes are not directly being paid. There are many athletes that will simply not collect endorsements and contracts. Out of the millions of dollars that the NCAA brings in every year, shouldn't the NCAA directly pay the athletes? Thank you.
The Olympic motto is Citius Audius Fortius, faster, higher, stronger, and athletes have fulfilled that motto rapidly. The winner of the 2012 Olympic Marathon ran 2 hours and 8 minutes. Had he been racing against the winner of the 1904 Olympic Marathon winner, he would have won by nearly an hour and a half. Now that we have this feeling that we're just getting better as a human race, inexorably progressing, but it's not like we've evolved into new species in a century, so what's going on? Athletes also have a different mindset than they once did. Have you ever seen in a movie when someone gets an electrical shock and they're thrown across a room? There's no explosion. What's happening is electrical impulses causing all of their muscle fibers to twitch at once, and they're throwing themselves. They're essentially jumping. That's the power that's contained in the human body, but normally we can't access nearly all of it because our brain acts as a limiter, preventing ourselves from accessing all of our physical resources because we might hurt ourselves tearing tendons or ligaments. But the more you learn about how that limiter functions, the more you learn about how you can push it back, just a bit, in some cases by convincing the brain that the body won't be in mortal danger by pushing harder. I do not believe that we're becoming a better species, but I do think that we're becoming smarter and better understanding ourselves. Thank you.
Right now, on the coast of Florida, fish, manatees, dolphins, and turtles have been washing up dead on Florida's beaches. The algae bloom that causes the red tides releases toxins that may cause illnesses in humans and other animals. It is not suggested to swim during a red tide because the dead fish can cause skin irritation and respiratory problems. Just being on the beaches near red tide can make breathing more difficult. What is really upsetting is that people seem more concerned with the loss of tourists instead of loss of sea life. The media is still talking about red tide, and really that's hurting our business more than anything else, says Elliot Falcione on the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. The things we need to worry about are how to stop red tide from slaughtering marine life. Trying to prevent extra runoff will help stop feeding the algae blooms. At the end of September, Congress let National Algae Bloom Research and Prevention Program expire. The U.S. Senate has passed legislation to reauthorize the program, but we also need the House to pass legislation for it to go into effect. There is more to be done to stop red tides altogether is a mighty task, but to change our ways even a little will help stop this massacre.
There are many animals in the ocean. Among the weirdest are a type of animal that has no heart nor brain, jellyfish. There are over 2,000 types of jellyfish. Among them include a jellyfish that is immortal, a jellyfish that is as small as your thumbnail, a jellyfish that is as tall as 2 people combined, and a jellyfish that is so poisonous you are better getting bitten by a black widow spider. Imagine all the creatures you know that live in the ocean, including the ones I just told you. How many can you imagine? 10? 20? Now multiply that number by about 11,423. That still would not cover the entire amount of species in the ocean. That's only about 2/3 of the animals in the ocean. In order for marine biologists to continue to help us learn about the animals in the ocean, we need help. So please, help us learn about everything in the sea, from jellyfish to whales. There are many careers in marine biology. You can donate to places like Project Aware, the Coral Reef Alliance, or the Ocean Conservancy. Even a small amount of money can help us learn more.
Climate change is an issue we will need to deal with as soon as possible, or it could have nearly apocalyptic effects. Climate change is caused by the sun's heat being absorbed by and trapped in the atmosphere by carbon emissions being given off largely by the oil and coal industries and transportation. Climate change will cause natural disasters like hurricanes, wildfires, and droughts to become much more frequent, dangerous, and powerful. We are already seeing some of those effects. The economy will be devastated because of climate change. Common food imports and exports like coffee, chocolate, corn, beans, and seafood will be wiped out, and many people will starve as a result of these common food staples being wiped out. Sea level rise will be a major problem too. Scientists estimate that the ocean levels could rise up to 10 feet by the end of the century. Many major cities like Miami, New York City, Osaka, Japan, and Bangkok, Thailand will be underwater, and over 300 million people could be displaced. We need to take action on climate change now. There's too much evidence that it is not a hoax and that it is real. The more the world neglects to take action on it, the worse the effects will be and the harder it will be to reverse.
It is a commonly known fact that high fructose corn syrup is bad for you, but the overlooked side of the issue is, how bad is it, what does it do, and is it worth avoiding? Well, high fructose corn syrup is a sweetener made from cornstarch, whose glucose, another word for sugar, has been converted to fructose. While it's derived from a natural source, high fructose corn syrup is essentially an unnatural product. During the last several decades, the prevalence of obesity and metabolic syndrome has risen dramatically on a global basis. Scientists have shown the obesity epidemic directly correlates with the increase of high fructose corn syrup. In fact, between the years 1970 and 1990, the annual intake of high fructose corn syrup increased by more than 1,000%, greatly exceeding the change of intake in any other food group. Americans are being poisoned by a common additive present in a wide array of processed foods like soft drinks, salad dressings, commercially made cakes and cookies, breakfast cereals, brand name breads, and even crackers. This commonplace additive silently increases our risk of diabetes, hypertension, early mortality rates, and high blood pressure. As a result of this epidemic, Americans need to be more careful about what they are buying and become more conscious consumers. People need to be aware of what they are putting into their bodies and what the possible side effects could be. So, on behalf of your livelihood, read labels and do research. Thank you.
Kids and teens should spend more time in nature and less time inside. Studies have shown that 93% of the average American life is spent indoors. As years have gone on, technology has advanced. People are spending less time outdoors, more time inside. Spending even 20 minutes a day in nature can improve your mental and physical health. When people are inside, it can cause a weakened immune system, whereas being outside can boost your immune system by breathing in a chemical produced by plants that can raise white blood cell count and help fight off disease. Taking a walk in the great outdoors can help fight symptoms of depression. Exercise causes the body to release a natural chemical called endorphins. Endorphins cause sensations of pleasure, and when released, they can cause a person to feel happier and help fight the symptoms of depression. Spending time in nature's natural beauty has been proven to boost people's energy. You feel less tired after spending time outside, whether it's in a park or in a forest. People feel energized after taking a stroll in nature and are able to better focus on what they were doing before. Spending just 20 minutes outside a day can help make you feel happier and healthier, so get outside today. Thank you.
There are many flaws in public restrooms in Washington. Numerous people have felt violated of their privacy, unsafe, or disgusted of the cleanliness of the facility they were using. Something a lot of restrooms fail to have is a reliable lock. Locks are often not aligned or broke, being one of the most common issues in a public restroom. Toilet lids are also something that most public restrooms lack. Toilet lids make sure that potentially harmful bacteria cannot spread into the air. Sadly, harmful bacteria are still everywhere, and because public restrooms are used so often, there are several public places that don't have a regular cleaning schedule. Even baby changing tables are poorly taken care of. Misuse of public changing tables can break off the necessary equipment or spread germs and bacteria to children at vulnerable ages. It is estimated that an average of 3,000 babies a year are injured from changing tables. Some of these injuries fatal. There would be less of a chance of this happening if they were checked more often, because restroom policies must be strengthened and followed, because restrooms need to be more reliable, safe, and give privacy to all of its users.
Have you ever been kept up at night with strange thoughts? For example, how will artificial intelligence affect the workforce? How will it affect me? And then forget most of it when you wake up in the morning? Well, I finally had a chance to look into this thought, and I have found out that the only way AI will affect the workforce is positively. There are already AI programs with simple things like editing and paying taxes. So as AI advances to come up with more tasks with a wider array of tools, like fact-checking and writing articles for things like tabloids and news, programming in similar fields, mixing these together to get a general idea of what they would look like. Google already has a tool like this. So the next time you're talking to someone and they're saying how AI is going to take all our jobs, just tell them. They really need to check their sources more. It's pretty simple. It's more of a tool than an enemy to employment.
Technology is the biggest difference between society in the past and the present. Many things have changed since we had to go to the library for every research project. It's hard to imagine the innovation and creativity it took to make the devices that we take for granted today. We have become sucked into our digital devices. Although technology has helped solve many of the world's problems, it has caused researchers to begin looking into the side effects of staring into a screen for several hours every day. They have learned that the loss of creativity is one such side effect. Creativity is one of the building blocks to our society. And because of technology, creativity is suffering. According to 5 Ways Technology is Destroying You, creativity requires a combination of 2 modes of thinking, focus mode and diffuse mode. Focus mode is when you focus on one task and your thoughts do not wander. In diffuse mode, your thoughts are free to wander and explore. But devices are always within reach and are cause our minds to be constantly in reactive mode, distracting us with responding to seemingly urgent notifications. Rather than thinking, often being in reactive mode affects our creativity because, like any sport, creativity requires practice. And we can find creativity by setting aside time to turn off our digital devices every day. Just as Daniel Smith said, we should strive to live a life that is well balanced. Don't do things in excess. It would be wise for us all to apply this to technology. Thank you.
Moral outrage is the emotion experienced in reacting to an injustice, therefore involving moral judgment, and is often most accompanied by a desire to shame or punish wrongdoers. We can see this in person, on the radio and TV, and experience on a multitude of social media platforms. It can happen by a comment or post that triggers certain stimuli that can lead you to feel strongly towards that subject. Moral outrage can be a wonderful thing because it can allow anyone to express how they feel about something, but it can also allow people who want to cause harm or conflict the power to do just that. One downside to moral outrage is that since you have the power to respond to a post that can make you outraged, and you do, it'll most likely happen again, with more intensity. Something similar to this is called the catharsis theory, which says if people are able to vent their anger and frustration, their anger will decrease. But recent research has shown that the opposite happens, and people who vent their anger are more likely to become angrier more often and dehumanize others. Dehumanization, by definition, is the process of depriving a person or group of people of positive human qualities, which can lead to increased violence, human rights violations, and it can also escalate social conflicts even further, which can lead to the polarization of ideas. And if we're not careful, then we as a society can be led down that trap of outrage. Thank you.
What do you think when you hear AI? Maybe it's something a little like this. But that would be inaccurate, where something like this would be more accurate. I think a slide, something may have been skipped there. Some things that you see as AI, though actually AI, are rarely, if at all, common things to call AI. You might actually know what AI is, but for most of you, what you think of is robots that think like humans. Well, that is a form of AI. A far more accurate example is technology you don't need to manually control everything they do. 68% of technological consumers use AI without even realizing it. 85% use AI aware or not, and nearly all Americans use AI in some way. Nearly all tech that you don't control completely, like phones or many other sites, use AI to help search and randomize settings, or game mechanics in most video games. Some people think that we should try to stop the creation of general or strong AI, which is AI that can think like humans. Some think that general AI is unavoidable or, as some other people think, impossible. Personally, I think we should try to start by putting some control so that AI's goals don't misalign with our own. But I also think that AIs are something that can help us. For example, they can go into fires for us and save people. The firefighters fighting the fire will be less likely to get lung cancer or other diseases. AI is also being used in cameras, which are being used to find endangered snow leopards and to help us all keep in through communications, and even helping the police find suspects. In the future, AI can respond to disasters, fight for us in wars, create more effective technology protection, and even advance our technology that we can't finish. I urge you to help support and pursue the creation and advancement of AI.
Harry Potter, Hunger Games, even the Lorax. These are all books you know and may love as I do. But in some towns, some school districts, these books have been banned. In 2018, 438 books were reported to have been restricted. It is absurd that we allow one person or one group of people to make the decisions for everyone. If you don't want your child to read a book, don't allow them to read it. Don't affect everyone, because not everyone may share your views on that particular book. Furthermore, books teach children valuable lessons. The Lorax teaches kids the importance of caring for the environment, yet it was banned in a school district for turning kids against the logging industry. Books are important tools to shape human culture. They allow people to express their beliefs through writing. So please, protect your First Amendment rights and talk to your school district about reshelving restricted books. Or simply stroll down to your local library and pick up a banned book today. Thank you.
All right, so at the start of this whole assignment, I was going to be talking about how college athletes should be paid. But halfway through all my research, they made an announcement that college players can now take endorsements. I like to think that I played a part in this whole thing, so mission accomplished, right? Well, no. This whole thing on players being able to take endorsements from companies is only going to affect a handful of people. Most of the players aren't guaranteed a spot in the NBA, and companies are interested in someone who isn't going to be a pro. Even if they do go to the NBA, only the people that are big deals are going to get an endorsement. According to Quora.com, the average amount of college homework is 2 or 3 hours a week per class meeting hour. This is saying 2 to 3 hours of just homework for one class, not including all the studying and actually attending the classes. This is a lot. I play basketball, and I can tell you that it's hard work day in and day out. The players are also sacrificing their physical health for their team. I know this firsthand because I fractured my arm playing basketball 2 weeks ago. This could slow them down in academics. I would know this because just having typed this 1-minute speech took me a few days with my solid 5 words per minute typing speed. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to say that college athletes need more than just being able to take endorsements. They should get directly paid for playing like contracts in the NBA. So the NCAA must realize their hard work and pay them directly.
Veteran care in the U.S. lacks basic necessities when it comes to mental illness. Veteran suicide has been occurring in the world before the 20th century, and it wasn't until 1944 that the care of veterans was taken into consideration. Roughly 20% of veterans that served in Iraq or Afghanistan suffer from PTSD, and out of that 20%, 19.5% have suffered TBI while serving in the war. And according to National Veterans Foundation, 2.1 million veterans will receive care from the VA, but that's only 50% of veterans that need it. In February 2018, a 33-year-old Marine Corps vet, Justin Miller, took his own life in the parking lot of the Minneapolis VA. A 32-year-old Marine Army Sergeant, John Toombs, hung himself in Murrysboro, Tennessee, November 2016. Both Miller and Toombs were suffering from PTSD, but neither were given proper care. 55-year-old Marine Cole Jim Turner shot himself December 2018 while still in his uniform. When veterans return from war, wounded and hurt, doctors tend their wounds, but no one tends to their minds. When wondering what to do to help veterans in need, contact your local VA to learn about the care provided. Thank you.
Ever since the inception of climate change, there has been arguments. Is it real? Is it fake? Let's set some facts straight. Climate change is real and it is a threat, both man-made and natural. There is no difference other than that man-made climate change has just sped up the natural process. Let's start at the beginning. What is climate change? According to NASA, climate change is the natural process of the Earth's weather patterns changing. Some of its recent effects are global warming, an increase of natural disasters, and rising sea levels. These have only just begun and have already begun to destroy our environment. There are ways to fight this, though. Some things that you can do are use paper bags, plant some trees, or recycle. These are just a few, and if you check the internet, there are hundreds of other things that you could do to decrease your carbon emissions on the environment. If you think that a little thing that you do won't have a huge effect, you're right, it won't. But if everyone just did a tiny little thing to help the environment, the result would be worthwhile.
The statistics from 2019 show that there are over 3.2 billion people all over the world on social media. Social media may help people keep up with friends and relatives, but it has a big influence, causing way too many negative effects on the human brain. Being on social media for 30 minutes a day can actually be beneficial to the health of the human body, making the users feel less lonely. Most people, though, use it for longer. Seeing other people's picture-perfect moments makes the user feel like others' lives are so much better. In truth, no one posts about their mom lecturing them or taking out the trash. When asked why people use social media, the most common answer is so that they can manage their public image. People see too many fake highlights, making them develop insecurities about themselves and their lives. Social media has a big influence, so limit your time to 30 minutes a day, giving you negative effects that won't be negative. So, thank you.
Some people may think that spending money on space exploration is a bad idea. They might think that space is just an empty void, but this is not true. You might think that the United States is wasting money on NASA, but NASA's budget is only 0.49% of the US budget. This budget should be raised to help NASA send satellites to help us learn about Earth, to help us improve life on Earth with these satellites, and to find innovative solutions to problems through engineering. Many of the satellites NASA has sent to Earth are sent to observe the Earth. One such satellite is SMAP. SMAP measures soil moisture and can help predict droughts and floods along with crop yields for that year. Another satellite, ARIS, records carbon dioxide levels in Earth's atmosphere, but not all benefits from space are in space. Many inventions that we use daily in our lives were originally invented by NASA to help astronauts do their jobs. Memory foam was used by NASA to help protect astronauts, but is now used as mattresses and pillows. Scratch-resistant lenses for cameras and glasses were also developed for lightweight space protection for equipment. Space can lead to many benefits, but most importantly, it can lead to curiosity that would otherwise stay trapped inside of us forever. I urge everyone to consider the benefits of space exploration before thinking that space is worthless. Thank you.
Affirmative action. It's a well-meaning attempt to increase diversity and fight injustice. However, it could be better. Unfortunately, with the current system, there are people who feel like they are subject to a kind of reverse discrimination. So how can we as a society have diverse schools while still being fair to all people? There are currently multiple states banning affirmative action, but that's not doing any good. Instead, we should change it, molding it so that it addresses modern problems. What if affirmative action were to be about socioeconomic status? Let's face it, the more money you have, the better opportunities you can afford. Whereas in a complete meritocracy, the most fortunate often have an easier time rising to the top, we could instead give the less fortunate a boost. Is it fair that some students have to juggle schoolworks and jobs while they can spend their free time doing extracurricular activities that look good on an application? This will also help address another large problem, income inequality. It's present everywhere and there's no completely getting rid of it. But we can still try to make it less severe, and doing so should be a high priority. If affirmative action were to be changed to instead factor in socioeconomic status, then it could succeed in both bringing in a diverse group of students and giving some of the newer generation opportunity to escape from poverty. Thank you.
$700,000 cats and dogs are born in the USA every day. Many people see this number as harmless, as 3.2 million pets are adopted from shelters each year. But that leaves us with about 252.3 million animals. That's a lot of pets. Many pets go into kill shelters, and some are left on the streets to have more puppies. Another contributing factor to the surplus of puppies are puppy mills. Puppy mills inbreed dogs and sell them for very high prices. These dogs are more likely to develop illnesses and die young because of this. They're raised in extremely poor conditions. Lots of dogs that come from puppy mills need surgery as they have been bred to have cuter qualities. For example, the German Shepherd. This dog's hips are collapsed and will not live as long as Mutt's. Purebreds live 8 to 11 years, while my Mutt Stella lived to the old age of 15. Mutts are superior to purebreds. They're smarter, less costly, and finally, you'll be giving a home to an animal that was once abandoned or on the streets. If you ever adopt a dog, cat, or anything in between, try and find an animal that needs you.
Bullying is defined according to the National Center of Bullying when an individual or a group of people with more power repeatedly and intentionally cause harm to another person or group of people who feel helpless to respond. Bullying is a crucial problem that happens in the majority of American schools. Although bullying does exist in schools, many aren't also that aware of cyberbullying, which some say that it's worse as it's anonymous. Bullying is extremely common in schools, and kids are affected by this. Thousands of kids are having mental illnesses that interfere with their performance in schools. I am here to help eradicate this. As a student from Garrison Middle School, I myself have witnessed bullying. It's simple to help stop bullying. Kids have to speak up and confront the bully whenever they feel scared, overpowered, or insecure. Even though the bully can leave you with a smeared reputation for telling, it's not worth the risk. One great solution is for parents to talk to their own kids about bullying and often also talk to them about any issues that are happening in schools. Let me reiterate the fact that kids are coming down with depression and anxiety, and this is such a crucial problem as E3SF.org explains how there are 500,000 suicide attempts, which trace back to bullying, but the other issue is that there are 1,200,000 high school dropouts, which is not pleasing to have. So please, report bullying immediately if you ever witness it. Bullying is just purely diabolical. If we can speak up, we can make a tremendous impact to eradicate bullying in schools.
Today, I will be sharing with you my perspective on feminism and equality. A feminist is a man or woman who says, yes, there is a problem with gender as is today, and we must fix it. We must do better. Throughout history, there have been many definitions of feminism. A feminist does not hate men or want women to have more power. A feminist is someone who wants equal power for everyone. True feminism is about equality for all genders. Although the world won't ever reach the greatest point of equality in our existence, today there are signs of progress. People are starting to make sure their voices and stories are heard. This is an enormous step with regard to equality. Equality and feminism look different in every situation and can be a lot more in-depth than it seems. If everyone assumed less and accepted more, our world would be in a much better state. The world is at a lack of love and acceptance. Finding more ways we can change that will help us reach a good point with equality and social justice. Love your neighbors.
Gun violence, including gang-related gun violence, is a big problem, and it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger. It seems like such a harsh topic to talk about, but what we need to do is talk about the solution. In 2017, gun deaths reached their highest level in at least 40 years, with 40,000 deaths that year alone. Gun deaths increased by 16% from 2014 to 2017. 280-plus life-saving gun laws have been enacted in 45 states and D.C. since the tragedy at Sandy Hook. 136,000 Americans are shot each year. 4.6 million children live in a household where guns are unlocked and loaded. 1,500 children are killed with a gun every year. 6 of the deadliest mass shootings in modern U.S. history have happened in the last 10 years. Long-term solutions to address this problem of gun violence must include a comprehensive approach to reducing the number of youth involved in gangs, reducing the number of gun shows, and reducing the number of people having guns at all. If you own a gun and you keep it in your house, then make sure it's locked away, especially if you have children. Thank you.
Since around 1850, the rate of animal extinction has been rising at an alarming pace. Species are going extinct around 1,000 times faster than they would be without the influence of humans. Humans are the main reason that almost all animals go extinct. We cut down forests, throw plastic in the ocean, pollute the atmosphere with all sorts of toxic gases, and extensively hunt animals, so much so that they are never seen again. For example, the dodo went extinct in 1681 partly because of its small habitat. Dutch sailors then ate them to extinction after learning they were easy to catch. Sadly, some species alive right now are going through exactly the same problems as the dodo did. The sayola is critically endangered due to mass commercial hunting, and there is said to only be around 100 to 750 of them left. Some conservation acts try to help, like the Endangered Species Act, but regardless, people still break the law. If you want to help, don't litter, know the animals around you when hunting, and use less plastic. These changes may seem small, but if everyone does them, then it will have a huge impact. Thank you.
Sea turtles are listed as endangered species. We need them because they help our ocean's ecosystem. The reason why they are endangered is because of pollution and people hunting them. One of the reasons why they are endangered is because of water pollution. Water pollution is killing these sea turtles. Plastic is one of them. Sea turtles eat plastic on accident because they think it's jellyfish, and that confuses them because plastic is see-through and clear like jellyfish. Another reason why they're listed as endangered is because of human-caused threats. Humans from Central America and Asia are eating sea turtle eggs and meat as a source of food. They also use other parts of the turtles for something else. To make sea turtles not endangered, we should clean up the garbage that's on the ocean and trying to make people stop hunting them down. Turtles help the oceans by cutting tall seagrasses and making them shorter for other species to lay their eggs on them. They also help by controlling jellyfish's population. If turtles went extinct, the ocean would be a disaster.
Guns have been in our society for centuries. They have been used for hunting, war, and even for self-defense. However, in the past several years, guns have been used to take the lives of many innocent people and in many cases children. People who lack information on gun control tend to not feel strongly towards guns or people owning or carrying guns. For a gun to go off, the gun needs a shooter. So should the real topic of discussion be, should there be stricter gun laws for the owner? However, in the United States, it isn't very difficult to obtain or own a gun. Guns are very common in America, and anybody can simply sell their firearms to another person with the ending result of now anybody can own a gun. Guns often haven't been used properly, and I think and strongly believe that there should be stricter law. Nearly 1 million Americans alive today have been shot by an intimate partner. Approximately 4.5 million American women alive today have been threatened with a gun or shot by an intimate partner with the access to a gun in a domestic violence situation. This makes it 5 times more likely that a person will be killed.
If you really love your pets, then spaying and neutering them will show that you care for them the most. Although this minor surgery may come with a price tag, it does not mean that there are a multitude of benefits that outweigh the cost. According to the American Humane Society, every year millions of cats and dogs are euthanized in our nation's animal shelters because there are more pets than there are responsible homes for them. A lesser-known issue of failing to spay and neuter your pets is robbing them of a healthy life. Spaying helps prevent infections and tumors which are malignant or cancerous in about 50% of dogs and 90% of cats. Breeding your dogs is a reasonable explanation for not fixing your pets. Having pre-planned homes for the offspring and knowing the cost of having them and being prepared are all necessities for the owner to have their pet's offspring responsibly. Spaying and neutering your pets can give them a better quality of life and help save the lives of other animals. Thank you.
There are many stages of drug abuse, ultimately leading to difficulty in managing one's life as a result of using drugs. Individuals who begin using drugs as juveniles are at a greater risk of becoming addicted compared to those who begin drug use as an adult due to the immaturity of the teenage brain. The symptoms of drug abuse include tolerance to a substance, withdrawal episodes, using more drugs for longer periods of time, and problems managing life issues. Substance abuse is caused by a number of individual factors, which are family genetics, social experiences, rather than by any one cause. In recent years, recognition of over-the-counter medication has been abused by patients, especially teenagers and young adults, and it has increased. There are 70% of high schoolers that have taken a drug legally, and more than 20% of kids have used a prescription drug for non-medical purpose. Over-the-counter medications are easily abused because they are inexpensive, legal, and available, and because they have no age requirement or limit on the amount purchased. Thank you.
Poverty is a problem today. Nearly 1/2 of the world's population, at least 3 billion people, live on less than $2.50 a day, and more than 1.3 billion live in extreme poverty, less than $1.25 a day. 1 billion children worldwide are living in poverty, in which 22,000 die out of hunger each day. Poverty affects education in many ways. For instance, even though many countries offer free education, many students drop out because their families require money and food, so they start working at an early age. In other countries, the problem is that they don't offer free education. According to the journal article, in Ghana, households spend about $87 per child in primary education each year, and in El Salvador is $680. The concern, according to the Institute researchers, is that such costs can prevent children in the poorest families from going to school. Another reason why poverty affects education is that children are exposed to bad conditions such as substandard housing, limited Medicare, and poor nutrition can affect the rate of childhood disease, premature birth, and low birth weight, all of which affect a child's physical and cognitive development. Today, our president wants to spend about $15 to $25 billion building a wall. If so much money can be spent in something unnecessary, why can it be used to solve one of the biggest problems? Thank you.
Have you guys ever wondered what makes a chicken egg different from a duck egg? Well, to begin with, duck eggs have a higher fat content than chicken eggs. Duck eggs contain 9.6 grams of fat compared to 5 grams of fat in chicken eggs. Duck eggs are also higher in omega-3 fatty acids, 71.4 milligrams versus 37 milligrams. And duck eggs stay fresher longer due to their thicker shell. Some chefs highly prize duck eggs because they make the cakes and pastries that they bake fluffier and richer. I recommend that you guys should try duck eggs because, well, nobody else really wants to buy them, and they're not really for sale all the time. Other than that, I believe that if you are going to try something new, you should try a duck egg. Thank you.
Vaping. Vaping has been a huge problem these past couple of years. Young teens have been using a device called Juuls and Mods, and those juices have had a chemical that has caused lung cancer, have caused teens to be diagnosed with lung cancer and have their lungs collapse. There's a good side and bad side. It has helped people to stop smoking, but this could be taken away from them. If the teens keep on overusing this, and so in this situation there isn't anything that we could do but have parents take over their actions and stop them.
Plastic waste in the ocean is a major problem to this day. A while ago, fishermen found a dead body of a fish that had been extinct for 65 million years and found it dead from a Lay's potato bag wrapped around its gills. The ocean's surface is covered with millions of tons of plastic. 40% of the ocean's surface is taken by plastic. At the current rate pollution is of growing, by 2025 the plastic is expected to outweigh all of the fish in the sea. Sea life inhales and eats 12,000 to 24,000 tons of plastic each year. Scientists estimate that there are roughly 15 to 51 trillion pieces of plastic in the ocean. It has been estimated in 2010 that 60% of seabirds have eaten plastic. That number is estimated to be 90% by 2050. The major thing that people can make other people stop doing is throwing away more and more plastic and trash in the ocean. Thank you.
I've always loved fashion and clothes. And until recently, I never thought about the people who turn rolls of fabric into the clothes I love to wear. We should be buying clothes that are ethically made. Unfortunately, not all of our clothes are. Many companies make our clothes where the working conditions are poor. In some places, employees are forced to work in buildings with no access to exits, bathrooms, and clean air. Aside from terrible workspaces, garment workers are often verbally, physically, and sexually abused. Some factories use child labor and barely pay their workers a legal minimum wage. So, when you are shopping, look for brands that treat their workers well and safely. Look at clothing labels, buy local, and ask brands if their products are ethically made. Take the time to know what you are buying.
founding fathers weren't the best people. In September 1802, James T. Callender wrote an article about how Thomas Jefferson had been having an affair with his slave, Sally Hemings. In 1998, DNA tests showed that Eston Hemings, Sally Hemings' last kid, his Y chromosome, came from descendants of Field Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson's uncle. Although there were 25 males with this Y chromosome at the time, and few of them had visited Monticello, the most probable father would, of course, be Thomas Jefferson. George Washington, the first U.S. president, expected all his slaves to work around the clock, even women and children, and discipline them in military style. Alexander Hamilton cheated on his wife, and that affair ended up with him getting blackmailed for $1,000. Benjamin Franklin was rumored to be part of this freaky satanic cult, I guess. So the founding fathers weren't the best people, but I'm not saying go vandalize their statues, because, I don't know, they were cool. They founded a country.
84% of the world's ice cover has melted between 1936 and 1995 and is now quickly disappearing. This is being caused by humans and their release of fossil fuels and greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. This is causing polar bears to be stranded in the middle of the ocean and starve to death. The rising temperature is also causing coral bleaching, which means that vast parts of all the ocean's coral are dying, including already half of the Great Barrier Reef. The rising water is destroying the beaches that sea turtles lay their eggs on. The stronger currents are sweeping them into unknown waters that have different predators. You can help by driving less and walking or biking instead. You can purchase less of what is made in factories and promote green energy. This is very important to me because I love being in nature and learning about or interacting with animals. I do not want any significant or loved species to go extinct or our amazing world to be ruined. Thank you.
Sports are important for kids growing up. Why? Well, from health to sleep, it has many benefits to you. Except around 70% of kids are dropping out, and we need to fix this. Without sports, many negative things can happen. It can affect your school performance, mood, and can give stress. Sports specialist Dr. Glenn Roberts of the University of Illinois has worked primarily in children's sports for the last 2 decades. He says that sports are an important learning environment for children. Children have to be active every day. Physical activity leads to growth and improved physical and emotional health. Today, research shows that the importance of physical activity in children is stronger than ever. Many kids drop out, whether from bad coaches or from the lack of engagement. Kids don't want to play. Well, there's a way to fix this. If you're not having fun with one sport, take a break for a little bit and try a new sport. If that doesn't sound ideal, talk to an adult, a friend, or a coach. Parents, with the help of trusted adults, kids can have fun playing sports while getting all the benefits of it. So why not get out and play?
The most expensive pair of basketball shoes are $30,000, and I got my basketball shoes for $55 on clearance. So no matter what you do, it'll be around $50 for a good pair of basketball shoes. But it isn't only basketball shoes, it's just about everything that has to do with basketball. Basketball is too expensive and is limiting the amount of time kids and adults get to play. If kids love to play basketball but don't have enough money, we may be losing a basketball all-star in the making. Additionally, it is a big price to have a kid play AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union. It can range from $400 to $4,000, which doesn't include transportation, food, gas, a physical, or admission into games. When someone gets injured, prices can vary a lot depending on the injury. In general, we need to fix this problem. If we make youth basketball a little less expensive, then maybe kids can at least try out the sport of basketball. Then if they really like basketball, they can arrange a way to pay for it in the future. But that is not the only way. We can step it up, lower prices, and decrease all requirements and help basketball players do what they love.
Hi, I'm Zane Roop, and I'm here to talk about gender bias in education. It is a fact that men
that men are outnumbered by women in the U.S., but the amount of men graduating is extremely low but very high for women. Also, Harvard University has had 4 Title IV complaints saying that the common traits of masculinity are toxic and harmful. This shows how gender bias in education is an issue and people should know about it. A study from Pew researchers in 2018 showed 2.2 million more women graduated than men did. They also showed an 11% increase of women in college since 2018. Harvard University seems to have a huge bias against male students. Chrisette Petges has filed multiple Title IV complaints against Harvard and 6 other universities. They're alleging to efforts of discrimination towards male students. The World Health Organization saw that toxic and rigid descriptions of masculinity are toxic for men. To fix these issues, everyone should be taught about how harmful it is to say such, and make more scholarships open so men can get into college. Also, if we create open classrooms, we can reduce stress and hopefully make a bias-free classroom. Thank you.
The wage gap between mothers and childless women who are otherwise equally qualified is now greater than the wage gap between women and men. Jennifer Sr. Men don't want qualified and hardworking women to be paid as much as them. They aren't willing to stand up for the women in their life. This is one of the main reasons we are still dealing with the problem of wage gap. With over 11 million women-owned businesses, you'd think that women's capability wouldn't continue to be belittled. Something to understand about the motherhood penalty is that women's income severely goes down after the birth of their child, even with the same hours they worked as before. Women with 3 or more kids make 20% less money than childless women. It's up to you to change this. As a woman applying for a job, you have to look out for sketchy private employers. Avoid questions like, how many children do you have? Are you pregnant? Do you have a daycare provider? These questions can lead to discrimination, so avoid preferential job interviews. As a man, do all you can to share your role as a parent with your wife. She has a job too. Every woman and man in this room should take a stand for the mothers in their life to stop the motherhood penalty and to stop discrimination towards women with children. Thank you.
According to 2 Canadian professors from the University of British Columbia who conducted a study, left-handers were more than 5 times as likely to die in accidents, often while driving or using power tools and other pieces of heavy equipment. On top of this, many are injured, and even when things are safe for left-handed use, they are awkward, uncomfortable, and difficult to use. These design issues are most commonly found in power tools, firearms, and school supplies. Firearms, which are already dangerous, are even worse for left-handed users. Most guns have a system to eject emptied breast cartridges, and for left-handed users, the discharge is directly towards the face and body. Although all the above-mentioned objects do have versions that are made to be used left-handed, these are often more expensive and harder to find. Humans are the only species with populational level-handedness bias. 90% of humans are right-handed, and every other species are 50-50. I think this is because in recent history, children were punished for using the left hand. Although this is not the case now, teachers still encourage right-handedness. Left-handed bias issues are easier to solve because it is caused by ignorance rather than hate. This is simple. All you have to do is when your user makes something, consider how someone would use it with the left hand, or if it would be more awkward to use left-handed.
All right. Climate change is causing huge problems all over the Earth. Basically, gases such as carbon dioxide are trapping and storing the sun's heat in the Earth's atmosphere. Those are called greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases cause climate change. The amount of these gases has been skyrocketing, and along with it, the temperature of the Earth has been increasing. According to NASA, the average global surface temperature has increased by about 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit since 1880, and 2/3 of this increase has happened just since 1975. Climate change is causing more dangerous conditions for hurricanes as they require warm water. It also causes rising sea levels that come from melting glaciers and warmer oceans. Higher sea levels mean more flooding and even the erosion of coastlines. There are ways to reduce the effects of climate change, such as trying to use a car less or carpool, as cars do contribute a lot of greenhouse gases into the environment. Also, if you want to make a very large difference, you can install solar panels onto your house or try to use a cleaner energy source. Together, we can defeat climate change.
So far, in 2019, there have been 334 mass shootings, 385 killed, and 1,342 wounded due to lack of gun control. Gun control, or firearms regulation, is a set of laws or policies that regulate the manufacture, sale, transfer, possession, modification, or use of firearms by civilians. Easy access to firearms, legal or illegal, is one of the main drivers of gun violence. This is why we need to take action as soon as possible to prevent future gun-related crimes. It is affecting students, men, women, and children worldwide and ruining the lives of many innocent civilians. Firearm homicide was the leading cause of death for black men aged 15 to 34 in 2017, and they were 10 times more likely to die from firearm homicide than white men in the same age group. Women facing domestic violence and children are also disproportionately affected. In 2017, the number of children who died from firearm-related deaths rose from 1,637 to 1,814 since 2016. Gun violence is a preventable problem that needs to be solved. All signs and evidence are pointing to stricter gun regulations, and we must make a change to stop gun violence as a whole. You can help by donating to programs that oust pro-NRA politicians and can help pass gun control laws. Stand up, protest, and don't let your children, friends, and family be affected by the returning issue of gun violence. Thank you.
Body image is a very important aspect of our society. Every day we see models and social media influencers who are seen as having the perfect body. Many teens and young adults have the idea implanted in their mind that they have to look like models to be pretty. Beauty is not based on what shape your body is. Self-scrutiny in mirrors, comparison, and envying the body of others is not healthy. Approximately 70% of girls with low self-esteem harm themselves, do drugs, or other similar activities. You must learn to love your body for what it is, not what it could be. Almost everyone here has had problems with how their body looks. Staring at yourself in the mirror, wondering why you're stuck with the body you have. I know I've struggled with it, I know my peers have. Our society needs to stop encouraging love for only certain body types. When negative body image is a norm, nothing will be solved. We need to fix our unhealthy behaviors. It won't be easy for anyone, but it will set examples for generations to come. Our unhealthy behaviors not only affect us, but those around us. We must learn to love and accept ourselves. We must make healthy behaviors the norm. Everyone deserves the right to love their body.
Don't Make Me Fight, Rather Fight for Me by Cape of Good Hope. This statement is about how dogs can't stop dogfighting. We are the only way dogs can be happy and stop it. This quote is a statement that we need to get across to people. We need to start taking control of this and fight to stop dogfighting. In a fight, people often drug their dog to try to get their dog to win the fight. They can use antibiotics and even steroids. In a fight, if a dog doesn't win, the dog can sadly get brutally abused, abandoned, and even sometimes killed. If the dog fails to perform, the dog is usually used as bait for the other dog to practice on. If you spot a dog that has bruises or maybe even puncture wounds, it is a way to spot it. The dog could also be connected to a chain or in a dirt circle. It is very terrible and people still do it. So today, you should go outside and think about what you spot and think about what I have said and try to fight to stop dogfighting.
Ocean acidification could trigger economic devastation, proclaimed by Chrissy Daniel November 14, 2013. Acidity is measured 0 to 14, 7 being pure water. The average pH rate since tested on August 23, 2019 is 8.1. If we do nothing, this will lead to incessant repetition of economic destruction. If one does not cause a problem, we'll need no solution. The toxins from acidity will engender our society to no longer eat the organisms in the water. Eliminating a food group will affect our milquetoast society indefinitely. This acidity has vitiated the growth of our economy. Earth is where we live, and we are treating it like we have another place to go. This is it. Treat Earth like it's our last resort. In the wise words of Greta Thunberg, a Swedish activist, I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day. I want you to act. I want you to act like you would in a crisis. I want you to act like your house is on fire, because it is. Thank you.
In 2016, the United States had about 37,000 gun deaths. The brunt of these deaths were suicide. Every town reports 22,274 people committed suicide, and 12,830 people committed homicide. I think this number of gun deaths is outrageous and something needs to be done to lower these numbers. The U.S. homicide rate is 25 times that of other high-income countries. 99% of Americans live within 10 miles of a gun shop. Some Americans are outraged by these facts and have pushed for stronger gun safety laws. Many are being put into place. For example, the law that no civilian could buy a machine gun or automatic weapon was passed in 1986. What can we do to prevent gun deaths in the future? We can donate money to organizations and votes for stricter gun laws. To reduce the gun deaths in America, we also must work to have laws which enforce universal background checks regardless of where guns are purchased. Thank you.
Animals are cute, and thankfully, none of them are in super serious danger. Thanks to the Humane Society saving up to 5,000 animals per year. But wild animals are endangered. That's probably a big problem. Bacteria is why. They carry fatal diseases. There's only about 300,000 chimps left. Chimps are dying because of diseases like Ebola and anthrax. The Bengal tiger is also suffering because of habitat loss, not to mention poaching. Thankfully, people already see the problem. Paws and gorilla doctors are already helping endangered species. Here's how you can help. Donate to animal shelters and tell your family about endangered species around the world. Animals are suffering, losing their loved ones. I know you've already experienced this, and if you haven't, you will eventually, sadly. Animals are struggling to survive, and we need to help them. After all, we don't want to die off. Save the animals!
For 40 years, Washington's public school funding has been undermined by state government cutbacks, Band-Aid solutions, budget tricks, unfunded voter mandates, and indifference to parent, student, and teacher concerns. The state still does not fund what our K-12 students actually need. ParamountDuty.org. The concern for the lack of funding is a Pandora's box of class cutting and inequity. Unfortunately, the problem is only getting worse, especially for the fine arts programs. Oftentimes, arts programs will be cut solely because they don't bring in money as sports programs do. For example, in most middle and high schools, the average football game costs about $6 for entry. Most fine arts showings are free, so obviously to the school systems, it would make sense to cut funding for the classes that aren't metaphorical cash crops. But there are solutions to this problem of class cutting. For example, nothing has to be fully cut, just less money could go toward extracurricular activities. I personally hope this problem gets solved soon, as I am a band kid, and this is a very real threat for me. As most of my instruments I borrow are from like the school and stuff, and there just isn't enough money to go around. Thank you so much for your time.
When I was around 6 years old, my father passed away. It was really hard to cope with and still is. From this point on, I was constantly drawing or singing or listening to music. The arts were and still are my biggest coping mechanism. The same can be said for many other kids. A lot of kids only have access to the arts through school, and in a lot of schools, funding has been cut, and in some cases, the arts have been removed completely. The arts programs are very important in schools. Students deserve to have these programs available to them in their school. Whether it be fine arts, choir, band, orchestra, or drama, the arts are needed in school. These programs help to shape our futures and our present. The negative effects of cutting funding outweigh the positives. Not only would it affect the students, it would also result in art and music teachers around the country losing their only source of income. This could leave many families without any financial support. So how can you help? Well, first off, you could encourage your parents or older siblings to vote in favor of the arts. You could donate to local arts enrichment programs such as Carnegie Picture Lab or volunteer. Art has helped me, and it can help you and millions of other children all around the world.
Insulin isn't a drug. It's the difference between life and death for millions of people who struggle with type 1 diabetes, and it's something they will need every day for the rest of their lives. Type 1 diabetes, known as juvenile or insulin-dependent diabetes, is a chronic condition in which the pancreas produces little or no insulin. My sister Brittany has had this disorder since she was 3. She's now 22, and it has affected her and her family in many ways. When insulin is needed and they cannot afford it, the choices are scary. In recent years, the prices are nearly tripling. For one tiny vial, the price can go from $25 to $300. Diabetics can have some physical problems. If they aren't taken care of, their nerves can die in sections of their body, and that can lead to blindness, limbs being amputated, to even death. Being exposed to a virus plays a part in developing type 1. Diet and lifestyle habits don't. Diabetes can cause problems during pregnancy for women and their babies. It increases the chances for birth defects, etc. 1.25 million Americans have this disorder. This is about 5% of all diagnosed cases, and remains the 7th leading cause of death in the United States. We could save so many people if this bottle of life was cheaper for those with this disorder. Let's make a change to keep our loved ones alive and healthy.
Racism is plaguing our society today. The racial bias in business is outrageous. Race should not be considered for jobs. Skill is what should be sought after. Together, it can end, starting in the workplace. Racial bias in the workspace is horrible and needs to end. Black and Hispanic people can be equally as qualified as white men, or even more qualified for the actual position they are applying for. But racial bias is just a roadblock, and many people are riding a bus that gets stopped by said roadblock. The employment rates for Hispanic males and females are on the decline. If we can get companies to stop being biased, we can bring those up. It's the same for their salary. Once again, white males are on top. Of course, the minimum wage applies for everyone, but some bosses play favorites. They give more pay depending on the person. Wages should be brought up for minimum wage unless you give minimal effort. A single mom could have lost her job by missing a few days of work. She would have to pay for herself and a small child. She would have to find a job, which would be difficult. When she finally found her job, her pay would most likely be minimal. She would have to split the money for food and rent. This is the issue. They would be on the verge of poverty. Children do not deserve to grow up like this. Raising efforts to hire different races and paying them more would solve these problems.
Feminist. What did you think of when you hear that word? The dictionary defines feminism as the theory of political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. This belief has a positive sound when read, right? So why is there a negative attitude towards the subject? Results from a survey on the Huffington Post show that only 20% of quiz takers consider themselves feminist, while 82% answered yes when asked if they believe men and women should be equals in all subjects. More surveys are reporting a common misunderstanding of the meaning of feminism. In my own experience, feminist has been used as an insult, and society as a whole often thinks of feminists as only women who believe they are superior to men. Sadly, some participators in the feminist movements are representing ideas like these, unlike feminism's real purpose. So do we need it now if it's just causing arguments and discrimination? To answer, statistics from the U.S. Department of Labor say that women in total, on average, earn only 81% of men's weekly earnings for working the same jobs. By now, the gender pay gap should have been closed, but this and other issues based on gender are still being faced every day. If we do not have feminism, the chance of having complete equal rights will only lessen. And you can make a difference. Stand for equality, not superiority, and maybe one day we won't need feminism anymore.
In 2018, a non-presidential election year, the United States had its highest voter turnout since 1941. 116 million votes were cast. However, only 49.3% of eligible voters turned out. Fewer than half of the people eligible to vote submitted a ballot. In 2016, a presidential election year, 60.1% of people came to vote. Other developed countries, like Belgium, which has compulsory voting, produced 87.2% of voters, 82% of voting-age Swedes voted, and in South Korea, 78% of eligible voters voted. Compared to other democratic developed countries, our turnout was appalling. To change our rate of voting, I think that we need to automatically enroll citizens with a birth certificate when they come of age. Make Election Day a national holiday so working people can more easily vote. Make voting mandatory, like Belgium and Australia, but with none of the above option. I feel that we all deserve a vote.
Faust, a quote from Jeanette Wabdil is, "It's like we're all in the same room, and there's this huge pink elephant in the middle of the room. That pink elephant is racism. but nobody wants to look at it. People walk around it, don't want to see it. But we can't begin to move forward until we name it and get other folks to actually see it. Until we can do that, we can't really change anything. We can't get the pink elephant out of the room. Racism makes people sad and sort of disabled in a way. What would you feel like if you were practically punched in the gut every day? This is how people under the effects of racism feel. In fact, nearly all of their physical and mental health is affected. What this does is it causes the victim to have an identity crisis, then leading on to depression. You may think depression is just the sadness, but it's also many other things. Here are the main topics: loss in psychological sense, loss in self-esteem, and it also makes the victim have a sense of helplessness as well. So, we need to stop holding innocent people in cell to be an actual human. Thank you.
Marcus Erickson, an oceanographer, calculated that there are around 5.25 trillion pieces of trash swimming around the ocean. The Amazon rainforest, which produces 20% of the oxygen on Earth, had a fire. Over 80,000 trees were decimated. Anywhere between 200 and 2,000 extinctions of animals occur every single year. We're watching animals getting abolished, fires demolishing forests and lush ecosystems, plastic, harmful oils, and trash just floating around and polluting waters, and that is just some of it. What are we going to do to fix a problem that affects most every living thing on the planet? United, we can make a big difference in a simple way by being more sustainable and reducing waste that we create. We can start thrifting and donating our clothes because otherwise they would go into a landfill. We can use reusable cups, buy organic food, walk, bike, or use public transportation whenever possible. Hopefully together we can relieve some of the long-term effects of global warming by being more sustainable and informed about the state of their environment. There are things happening around the planet, like fires, pollution, and agricultural problems, which are either caused by global warming or expediting global warming. Being more educated about solution causes and effects is one of the first steps to solving such an immense problem. Thank you.
In today's America, women make up nearly 50% of the workforce. So why is it that they are being paid so much less than men working their same hours in the same job? The answer to this question is gender inequality, which suggests that gender affects an individual's lifestyle, including their pay. An example of inequality in the workforce is the annual pay of a male and a female physician, both working in family medicine. The man is making around $243,000 a year, and the woman is making only $164,000, a difference of $79,000 every year, for doing the same exact work with the exact same level of experience. Women all over the world are fighting against the unequal pay they are receiving, but when will we know when we have reached true gender equality in the workforce? To have true gender equality at work, both male and female workers must be working in the same place, doing equal work and receiving equal pay, where the only exceptions are seniority or a higher experience. Thank you.
Snowboarding is a place for me where all my worries flow away as I float down the mountain. The sad thing is, there are so many people in this world who want to start this amazing sport, but the price is too high. The average cost to start snowboarding is $1,375 in addition to lift tickets that can top $175 a day. This is too expensive for most people who have to pay bills and put food on the table. I think ski resorts should do something about this. They need to lower their prices in order to allow more Americans the chance to enjoy a sport that only the lucky few get to enjoy. Most people go to a ski resort and think that learning how to snowboard will be easy. They find out it's not and go to buy a lesson. Then they find out that the price of the lesson is over $100. They get disheartened because they don't have that kind of cash to spend. Then they go home and never return to snowboarding again. This is tragic. Snowboarding can be life-changing. I mean, who doesn't want to feel that sudden rush of adrenaline that stays with you all day? If more people have this chance, then more people in this world will respect nature because of a stronger connection to it. Snowboarding is one of the best things that happened to me. As my dad says, live life on the edge and enjoy the view. The largest rainforest on Earth is burning, and it's breaking records for having more places on fire in it than ever before. We need to stop it. On August 20th, 2019, in the native city of Sao Paulo, Brazil, the smoke clouds got so bad it was extremely dark in the middle of the day. And if fires of this scale continue, the 1 in 10 animals who call the Amazon rainforest home will be in massive danger, and are, as I speak. But not all hope is lost. The popular YouTubers Mark Rober and Mr. Beast have started a movement called #TeamTrees,
where every dollar donated is a tree planted. And they have a goal of reaching $20 million in donations by 2020, and already at $15 million. So go to the link on the slide and donate to help save the Amazon and the Earth.
Home automation is a system that controls electronic devices or smart devices in a home. Home automation is convenient, safe, and it helps save energy and water. Besides, it creates peace of mind in any living space. A security system will make your home safer, while a smart thermometer will conserve heat by following a schedule. The blinds open and close when needed, and the light bulbs can turn on and off when you pass by to save energy. Home automation is not only convenient, it's safer, and it can contribute to help save energy and water globally. In the future, we will have better voice control, facial recognition incorporated into our smart devices, and more efficient, more useful smart devices. Home automation is affordable and easy to set up, unlike in the past. But most importantly, it helps save energy and water. Thank you.
This was fantastic. Well done. You guys, you will need to find your teacher in the lobby, and we will head to lunch from here. Make sure you pick everything up off the floor.
Home automation is affordable and easy to set up, unlike in the past. Most importantly, it helps save energy and water. Thank you.
This was fantastic. Well done. You guys, you will need to find your teacher in the lobby, and we will head to lunch from here. Make sure you pick everything up off the floor.